Good morning. My name is Dave Che. I pastor a church in Fremont, and this morning I have the great honor and privilege of introducing Deborah Liu. I was actually her pastor in the early 2000s. We've always thought she was very special, and her husband never thought that she'd ever be the superstar she is now, and so it's a real privilege this morning to introduce her. And looking at her list of accomplishments, it was so vast and so long, I said, all right, I've got to shorten this thing to make it short and sweet. But she's done a lot, and so I just want to just go over who she is and what she's done. Currently, she's the Vice President of Marketplace at Facebook. That little icon that you see on your phone app to purchase merchandise and things like that, she was the originator of that. She led the development of Facebook's first mobile ad product, apps, and audience network, while also building the company's games, business, and payment platforms. She has been named one of the most powerful female engineers of 2017 by Business Insider and is a 15-year veteran in the tech industry. Prior to Facebook, she spent several years as the product manager at PayPal and eBay, including leading the integration between the two companies. Actively involved in promoting diversity and women in tech, Deborah serves on the board of Expanding Your Horizons Network, a nonprofit that focuses on inspiring girls to pursue STEM careers. She co-created the Women in Product, a nonprofit organization passionate about product management, aiming to build a strong community of women builders and leaders in the tech industry. Currently, they have over 10,000 members. She's also a member of the Intuit Board of Directors. And she was educated at Stanford University, graduate school business, got an MBA there. And she was also a Duke Blue Devil, getting her BS in civil engineering. Married to David, mother of Bethany, Jonathan, and Danielle, would you please welcome Deborah Liu to the stage?
So I wasn't invited here to speak because I'm a person of great faith. And I'm not standing on the stage because I've sacrificed so much for God, or because I have something profound to teach you about Christianity, actually. I'm not standing here because I have a story to tell that's so profound that it's worth you listening. You know, Jesus said that if you have a faith as small as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And there are many days I wake up and I'm not even sure I can muster that. And so I thought long and hard about coming to speak here today, because there are days when I question, and days when God feels really far away from me too. The thing is, I was invited here because of something much, much more worldly. And I think Pastor Dave talked a little about those things. The fact is, I make great tents. In fact, not only do I make great tents, I live in a time and an era when making great tents is feted, when you are compensated and promoted for making great tents. We live in a time when people speak of your accomplishments, and that is what they talk about. And so I'm here because I am a master tent maker and just an okay Christian. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, tent making in the Bible is the work and profession that you do while furthering the work of God. And while I'm good at the work, the profession, I'm not even sure I'm actually that good at furthering the work most days. And I've never really had the courage to say that out loud. But the thing is, even as you're living your everyday, and even as you live your profession, every moment that you live is a reflection of your faith, good and bad. And I choose to live it as a servant leader. You know, in the Wikipedia, it talks about servant leadership as people not seeking to wield power from the top of a hierarchy, but actually people helping those with them and elevating those around them. And that is how I choose to live out my faith every day. Not professing how good I am or how blessed I am, but actually helping those around me. Let's start a little bit more back at the beginning. I was born in New York City many years ago. And I was born to a Christian immigrant family, and we moved to South Carolina when I was 6. It was a small town in the deep South, and I looked the way I do. And you can only imagine what that was like to grow up in a town where people told you to go back to where you came from all the time. Where people egged your house, where they actually threw a rock through the car's windows. This is what it was like for me. And I knew I wanted to escape, and I prayed for that escape my whole life. I was good at school, so I figured I would leave and never come back. But the thing that sustained me through all those years, and the thing I always believed, is God had a place for me somewhere in the world, wherever that was, and I was going to find it. And eventually, I came to Silicon Valley. And it was kind of a huge culture shock, actually, because there was this huge technological revolution happening, and my husband and I wanted to be a part of it. And this is how I became a master tent maker here in a time and place when tent making is valued so much. And I've built many, many products here through many, many years. But I stumbled into this profession. So I remember I was at Stanford and I was about to graduate from business school and I still didn't have a job. We wanted to move back to the South. And I saw a table for a startup called PayPal. And I thought, well, I love their product, I sell on eBay, and I just wanted to stop by and say hi, and I did, and they said, do you want a job here? And I thought, not really, I'm moving back, and I actually told them that, and they said, just come to our offices tomorrow. And so I said, hey, I get to see the inside of a tech company, I'm gonna go. And I did, and somehow I landed a job, and somehow a few weeks later I was leading the eBay PayPal integration, which was incredible. And I continued to build amazing products over the years, and eventually I went to Facebook, and I joined it because of the mission of connecting people to one another. That sense of alienation of growing up in a town when it was different from everybody else, I figured we could help people find a place to belong. But I remember there was a story that also inspired me, which was when I was at eBay. I was at an eBay Live, and this woman came up to me from South Carolina, and she said, I just want to let you know that eBay has been a blessing to me. And I thought that was a really strange thing for someone to travel across the country to tell me, and she said, look, my husband and I almost lost our house, and it is because of eBay that we not only survived, but we thrived. And I realized that so many people can have an answer to their prayer through the work that we do. And when I was at Facebook, I built many products, which Pastor Dave talked about, but the thing that was in my heart was that I wanted to build a way for people to connect, to build commerce, so that everybody in the world could have economic opportunity. And I spent 5 years building everything else that they asked me to and things that I loved, until I convinced somebody to listen, and I started working in the marketplace. And the product took a long time to take off, and now, 4 years later, it is touching hundreds of millions of people. In fact, 800 million people use this product on a regular basis, and millions have told us that they make their living on this product. And recently there was a story of a guy named Ron Rudolph, who in Minnesota, his wife had passed away from cancer when it spread to her brain. And I read the story and I thought a lot about it because he said he couldn't sleep one night and he decided to start building birdhouses, which I thought was a strange thing to do. But he has built 1,000 birdhouses and sold it to people on Marketplace so that he could reconnect with the world and connect with the community around him and honor the life of his wife, Pat. I remember reading that story and thinking that in some small way I could help him heal from his grief. But it also reminded me of what happened 7 years ago when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. For those of you who don't know the stats, if you have diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, I think the median time to live is 8 months. And I remember reading that and thinking that persistent cough that he had had for years was actually going to kill him in months. He had never smoked, and he was a wonderful man, and it was so hard to watch him suffer. And I remember, as I read the story about Pat, that how he died was also when the cancer spread to his brain. It was during that time when I really felt the furthest from God, when I felt like every day I wasn't sure I could wake up and still believe anymore that Jesus really heals, that God would ever listen. I remember praying against all hope and thinking, I want my miracle too, God. And he said no. He said no unequivocally. But something else happened during that time too. it was our 10th wedding anniversary. And I asked my husband what he wanted. And he said, I want a third child. And I said, no. Because the day my second child was born, he picked her up. He said, she's so cute, let's have a third. And I said, never say that again. And he said, no, this is what I really want. And I said, no, I don't think we can handle this. We're renovating our house. My father's sick. And he said, no, really, that's what I want. And I said, okay, how about this? I made a bet with him. And in some ways, I was testing God. I said, we had such a hard time having our second child. We went through all of these things. There is no chance I can lose this bet. We will try once, and if God meant it to be, we will have a third child. Well, you know what? We have a third child. The bet was that if we tried once and it didn't happen, that he would permanently take care of the problem and we would never speak of it again. He won the bet, and I think he had God on his side. And the thing was, when I was pregnant and watching my father pass away, it was one of the most interesting experiences to know that God had blessed us in so many ways and was taking away so much at the same time. And when he came to see my daughter for the first time, my father fell in our kitchen. And that's when we realized that the cancer had reached his brain, and it was the end. So he went back into hospice care, like Ron's wife, Pat. And I remember flying out to Texas with my daughter and putting her on his bed. She was 5 months old. And she grasped his hand, and cancer had taken so much away from him that he could no longer speak. But I just remember him looking at her. And in that moment, I realized that God can take a lot away, but God can give a lot back too. For months after my father passed away, I couldn't sleep, and every night in the dark, I felt that way that Ron Rudolph felt when you can't sleep, and you wonder, is God real? Why did he let this happen? And I'd wake up to her cries and think, God is here somewhere. And that is something in that moment when I'm not sure I had enough of a mustard seed to do anything, much less move the mountain. But you know, God has a way of getting back into your heart even when you're super far away and you're not ready. And over the next few years, as I worked, I realized that so many people feel that way. That sense of alienation from God and from one another, that sense I felt being different. And that I decided that I wanted to do something that connected people more than anything. And so after that experience, I actually started an open door policy at work that anybody could reach out to me and I would talk to them. And for the next 6 years, every week or two, somebody would come with a need and come talk to me. And I realized that people have really basic needs. They need a shoulder to cry on. They need someone to listen, and they need someone they believe has their back. And I benefited from this so many times in my career, and I wanted to pay it forward. And it was my way of honoring my father. It was my way of finding a way forward as well. You know, when I was in school, I actually had studied civil engineering so I could be an architect. And so the architecture I loved most was those great cathedrals in Europe. I wanted to be an architect because I believed in those buildings you could find God. Those buildings were built over dozens, if not hundreds of years. And when you walk in, you can't help but feel how small each human being is when you look at something which was built by human hands but inspired by God. And hundreds of artisans contributed to the stonework, to the masonry, to the beautiful stained glass. And they were created with these simple tools over many, many generations because people believed in him that much. But here's the thing, no one remembers who those people are. Their stories are lost through time, and nobody remembers who actually created the art that you see. But when you stand inside one of those cathedrals, when you're standing and looking up at something that you could not even imagine human beings could create hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you can feel God's presence there. You know, those stone floors have been walked by hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who are seeking God, and the marble has been worn away by those who prayed. And those people left, having been blessed by an artisan that they had never met. And that is what we can do with our work and our tent making here in Silicon Valley. We can glorify God by being great at whatever work He gives us. We can give Him honor by changing the world for the better. We can fight for justice and fairness for those who are silent. We can speak for those who have no voice. The work we do can be like those cathedrals. In our small way, we can make our corner of the world better. And the years will pass, and all of the accomplishments in LinkedIn will go away, and the earthly honors and rewards for the things that we do will be long forgotten. There will be no more talks, there will be no more stages. But the work that we do, whether we touch one person in a one-on-one conversation for half an hour and let them know they're not alone, or whether you build a product that touches hundreds of millions of people you will never meet, that's the blessing we can leave to the world through our faith. That the strength that Jesus gives us, the strength that God gives us to create, we can use as a blessing to serve those around us. And whether you lead in front of thousands of people, or you lead in your own small, quiet way, that is a gift that we have and the opportunity we have to make a difference. And so every day I ask you to do what I did after my father passed away. And that is to start each day asking Him that you can be a blessing to someone, that you can give something of yourself to create for someone else. Because in great loss, you can also find meaning in blessing. But that blessing doesn't have to be for yourself, it can be for those around you. And so as you live and work in Silicon Valley, as you do your own tent making, I ask that you be the blessing that those around you are looking for. Thank you.